So let me ask you a question. If you are managing a supply chain, what are you going to focus on in 2022? And particularly, what kind of things would you like to fix on your supply chain? That's what we're going to be talking about this week. And I'm going to talk about 3 levels of fix coming right up. So I spend my life fixing people's supply chains. If you weren't aware, my day job is actually running a management consulting company called Logistics Bureau. And I was talking to a client the other day and we were sort of talking about prioritizing what they could improve in their supply chain. And I kind of got this thought in my mind that there are levels of fix in the supply chain. And I reckon there are probably 3 levels, a little bit like sort of layers of a cake, if you like. And I just wanted to explain that concept and perhaps give you some ideas for things that you might want to look at in 2022. So let's call the top layer the sort of short-term or easier fixes. And I tend to think of these as fixes that don't really require a lot of investment and not massive change. So what do you think some of those might be? They're generally around policies, and particularly things like customer service policy and inventory policy. And talking to this client yesterday, we were having a big debate about how they ought to be managing their supply chain better, but they were a little bit concerned about the impacts on customer service and things like that. But customer service policies in most businesses are things that you can adapt and kind of refine a little bit without too much effort. So have a think about your own supply chain and the customer service that you're offering your customers. Hopefully you're not one of these businesses that just has a blanket one-size-fits-all customer service policy. I think the days of those have gone. You really ought to be segmenting your customer base depending on their needs and their size and things like that. But you can actually tweak the customer service policy and get some massive, massive benefits in the supply chain. Have you undertaken a cost to serve study? I can't get through a video without talking about cost to serve. If you haven't, there's loads of videos on this channel about cost to serve. But very often, and in fact, talking to another client yesterday, where we've in the food industry, where we've been doing this big cost to serve study. And guess what? One of their major products is a loss maker, and they didn't even realize. Not their fault. I mean, traditional reporting systems very often don't highlight these issues. But now we're sort of thinking about how can we adapt the customer service policy to maybe down-tune the customer service a little bit so it's more efficient, less costly, and they can start sort of making profit on some of those core lines again. So I suppose the surface one, if we're going to call it, or the top level, I would say is around policies. So have a think about things like customer service policy, inventory deployment, and cost to serve, of course, is a great tool to uncover some of the opportunities or gaps there. Let's talk about the middle of the cake then, the sort of more medium-term things, and the things that might require a little bit more time and effort to change. One that we've seen through 2021, of course, is sourcing. Companies changing their sourcing locations, sourcing countries, dual sourcing. That's going to be changing, I think, for a few years to come. A little bit harder to change, setting up new supply arrangements, but certainly that's one of those sort of medium-term things that you could look at. Outsourcing is another one. We've been doing a lot of that during 2021, helping companies not only outsource sort of warehousing and freight, but maybe helping renegotiate existing contracts to better suit their needs. So that's always a good thing to look at. And coupled with that, of course, freight, whether it be ocean freight, road freight, air freight, having a look there at your contracts, your service offer, your costs, your rates, all that sort of stuff. More medium-term things and a little bit harder to fix, but certainly worth looking at, I reckon, in 2022. And then the bottom piece of the cake, the more sort of foundational stuff, what would you include there, do you think? I reckon I would include the actual network, the supply chain network, the distribution network. Much sort of longer term change, if you were going to change anything there. We're talking about networks of warehouses and large freight networks. Not so easy to sort of change distribution channels, things like that. So it's a little bit like steering the oil tanker, isn't it? You know, this one you kind of adjust bit by bit by bit, and it takes time. But huge benefits also in looking at that distribution network and seeing what you can tweak over time. We've been doing lots of that during 2021 with many different industries as well. So there we go. It's just the 3 layers of the cake. Have a think about, you know, what would you target in 2022 in your own supply chain? You've got those easier things at the top, the sort of policy stuff, the customer service, the inventory, massive gains to be made there. You've got that middle section, takes a little bit longer to make changes there. There might be some cost involved, things like sourcing and outsourcing. And then you've got that more foundational stuff, which is the network. And you'd probably put in there sort of bigger IT systems and things like that as well. So 3 different layers. You're probably wondering, where's the greatest benefit, Rob? If we tackle, you know, the top, the middle, or the bottom layer, where's the biggest benefit to a supply chain? I'd have to say it's probably equal all the way through. Just some of those policy changes at the top level can make massive differences in cost reduction and profit improvement. Likewise, you know, those big changes to networks and so on down at the bottom. Yeah, I've seen, you know, 15% cost reduction in supply chains just through tweaking those. And then that middle section as well, you know, things like changing outsourcing arrangements, changing sourcing. So probably the top and bottom ones, I think, on reflection. Are where most of the goodies are hidden, where a lot of the benefit is. So there we go. What would you be looking at in 2022? I'd be very interested to hear. Maybe add in the comments down below. What are some of the things that you're changing in your supply chain in 2022? Some of the things that you're going to target, some of the things that you're going to have a look at. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.